India is the first country to have developed gene edited rice, and they are planning to release it next year. So maybe we will be the first country to have it. In some villages where I went, I saw that people don't use hybrid rice for worship. Once it comes to yield or gene editing or gene modified technologies, we kind of rush without understanding that we might already have such varieties or what may be the implications. We are actually neglecting the implications of it, the risks involved in it.
Namaste and welcome to this episode of SangamTalks. Today we are going to discuss an important topic related to our food security and whatever is happening in the current scenario. Specifically speaking, we are going to talk about certain varieties of rice in which gene-edited varieties have been given clearance by the government of India, as in the Ministry of Agriculture. And there are certain concerns which have been raised at various levels. Letters have been written to Shiraj Singh Ji Chauhan, and there are certain technical aspects also. If you remember, the viewers will remember that there was a time when we used to face food shortages, and we used to be given some very poor quality wheat known as PL 480 to our people in the 60s and 70s. Then as of now, we have reached some semblance of food security. We have a buffer stock of upwards of 380 lakh tons for rice only, and other cereals are also there. Now, using gene editing techniques or in the name of these new age techniques, which apparently increase the yield of the crops and also make them require less water. There is a lot of push from the multinational companies who own these editing technologies, gene editing technologies, and there are concerns regarding this. So today we have with us Shri Swamik Banerjee. Soumik ji has been a researcher. He is an independent researcher and practitioner of agriculture, organic and natural farming, and he has been leading the fight for the conservation of traditional seeds. One of the major reasons for our one of the major ingredients to ensure our food security in the long term. So he has an MSc in biotechnology, and currently he is based in Balaghat, Madhya Pradesh. So Soumik ji, welcome to this discussion. And as a layman who does not have a very deep understanding of these technical issues, let me begin by asking a very basic question. What is GMO food crops, that is genetically modified food crops, and gene editing, and what is the difference between these two?
Thank you for having me in this show. So the first question is on gene modified foods and gene edited crops, or gene modified crops and gene edited crops. So they are basically more or less similar. These are some different names given to similar type of technologies. So in gene modification, what we are doing, we are inserting some genes from other organisms like microbes, maybe soil bacteria or some other organisms into a crop for generating some type of resistance to herbicide, or some type of generating some toxins for pest management. And in gene editing also we are doing similar type of technology. If you look at SDN3, which is the site directed nuclease 3 technology, there also we use genes from different organisms and insert them into the host organism to have some specific actions. The other way is to delete some genes already present in the crop or in the organism, which is what has been done in this rice. Or we can also insert some genes from the same organism into specific positions. So these technologies are not very different, And the most important part is that the vector or the way these genes are inserted inside the host organisms are similar. So we have to use the same processes as we have used in gene modification to insert those specific genes into the host organisms. So when we use these other organisms, then there is a chance of contamination or chance of some fragments of that organism remaining in that host. So I don't see these are very different technologies, and they are very much similar, but because there has been a lot of controversies about gene modified crops, so now different ways this gene editing is being put up in terms of semantics, so that people are a little confused about this is something different, or this may be safer or may not be that adverse. This type of belief is coming, but if you go deep into it, it is very much similar to the old gene modified technology.
Uh, Soumik ji, just to come back to some of the specific question, because currently the issue is related to two varieties. That is,
Yes, two names, Pusa DST1 and this
yes,
Kamla is DRR 100. So
okay.
these are the gene edited rices. Yes.
And Kamla is a common name. Can we say that? I mean,
Yeah,
the
actually,
more
the
popular name.
scientist, yes, the scientist who developed it, I think Kamla is the name of his mother, so he has named the
Acha,
rice.
so
Yeah,
that way it has been named.
yes,
Okay, so now with respect to these two varieties, which the Ministry of Agriculture has given clearance for, what are the implications? Because apparently, as far as I could understand, and as I said, I don't have a very in-depth understanding of these matters. But as I understood, that these have been given clearances for use because as you said they are using gene editing technologies and not genetic modification. That is one. And apparently all the safeguards have been taken care of by the authorities which are supposed to be doing that. What is the situation on the ground? What are the facts around it? Can you please tell us?
yes. So in 2022, actually, government exempted two technologies, that is the SDN1 and SDN2 technology. SDN standing for site directed nuclease. These are basically gene editing technologies, so they were exempted from the strict protocol of oversight from the GEAC, like that is the Genetic Engineering Action Committee. So the government actually defined these two technologies as being safe, and they don't need so much of regulations or so much of oversight, and so they were exempted in 2022. So once they were exempted, then it was deemed as a safer technology, and then they started the development of these gene edited crops. So that is how these two rice varieties have come. So the government considers these two varieties of rice different from the earlier gene modified crops, like suppose BT cotton or HT cotton or other types of BT brinjal, all these things. The reason they consider it as safer, because they are telling that there is no foreign gene involved, and this is a technology which just knocks out some genes from the existing organism, which is rice in this case. And so because no foreign gene is involved, so it is safer. But as I said, that when you go deep into it, that how it has been done or what could be the implications, then we find a lot of discrepancies. But because it has been exempted by law, so now the GEAC or other oversight committees, they cannot intervene. They cannot demand to, monitor these, because these technologies are being considered safer. But there is a IBSC and other types of institutional committees for oversight who are supposed to check the safety regulations. But there is a lot of conflict of interest here, because these bodies are not neutral bodies, or they are not the designated bodies to understand the adverse effects or the safety concerns. And the most important thing is that we have no information, I mean the public have no information what the IBSC has
So,
observed, or what are the things they have looked at and what they have found. There is no report. The only the claims are being made that it is completely safe, but what are the details we have no idea. And since the exemption has been done, so the committees are not going deep into it because they assume that it is a safe technology. So because it is safe, so we don't need to go into so many details of toxicity, allergenicity, or adverse effects in the environment. So once you don't check it, then it is never detected, because we assume that it is okay, fine. So that is the
so
way it has been.
yeah. So Soumik just while speaking on this issue, just a while ago, you mentioned BT cotton. And as
Yes,
far as I can understand, or as far as I could gather from my memory and other sources, BT cotton was quite a controversial issue in India. And
yes,
would you say that the experience with BT cotton should have made us much more aware and alert to the dangers of allowing genetically modified, or let's say what they are calling as genetically engineered or gene editing,
yes,
gene edited food items, etc. What is your take on this? What should, just kindly
yes,
explain
surely.
it for the viewers.
Yes, I mean any type of gene manipulation. See, these words manipulation, modifying, engineering, editing, I mean, they're very similar words. If you look at the dictionary, you will find they're all, I mean, synonyms of the
Each other.
same word.
Hmm.
So basically, we are tampering with the genome of the organism, and that is something which is always dangerous and risk prone and may lead to, I mean, consequences which we are not aware of. The reason is that we fully do not understand things. We have begun to understand some aspects, but then becoming so overconfident that we can now take genomes, cut it here and there, insert something or knock out something, and then bring it out in the environment. These things are very risky because nature has its own way of working. So in the lab, maybe you are taking a lot of precautions and it is in a controlled situation. But once it is in the nature, then insects are interacting, microbes are interacting, different plants are interacting, and there is a lot of gene flow. There is a lot of interactions with different biomolecules in the soil, in the air, in around, which can lead to a lot of problems, and lot of toxins can be generated, or there could be some gene flows, and different types of possibilities are there. And in case of BT cotton or other genetically modified crops, we have enough evidence and enough research to show that it has happened. So we should have actually gone in the back step after understanding all this, and we shouldn't have gone ahead and tampered with these crops, especially rice, which is one of the most important food crops for India, as well as it is the food for half of the world. So this is what we should have done, but then we have gone in a different path. We have actually exempted these two technologies, saying that they are safe. And so now even the possibility of studying the adverse effects or having a very strict oversight is gone.
Okay.
So the
uh,
situation is more
yeah.
pernicious now. Yeah.
So essentially, what is happening is that we can say that in the name of gene editing, there is quite a fair bit of circumventing those strict rules and regulations which were in
Right,
place.
right,
So
right,
that a synonym is being used to circumvent the whole system. That's the essence I'm getting.
right,
Two follow-up questions. One is that there is, multinational companies like Monsanto was in the news for all the wrong reasons during the BT cotton and the farmers' crisis in Maharashtra story. Monsanto was a name that cropped up consistently. Apparently, this company still also has the patent for the gene editing technologies, etc. And there is one more company, I guess. So, what the question is that can we be doubly, I mean, are we, fairly sure that it is the same forces which are at work, which want to sort of impact or affect, our food systems, the indigenous food systems?
Yeah, I mean, yes, in a globally it is the same forces, but actually this technology is presently should not. I mean, it is not being owned by Monsanto. Actually, Monsanto has merged with Bayer now, so the Bayer is the main company. But this
Okay.
technology is not under Bayer right now. It is actually a technology developed by California, University of California, and Broad Institute and University of Vienna, and there are two main persons who also got the Nobel Prize for this, which is Jennifer Doudna, and another is Emmanuel Charpentier. So they basically own the major patents, and there is a lot of controversy. In fact, there is a lot of legal battles going on this patent, because many people claim the ownership of this technology, and yet the courts, I mean the outside, I mean the European courts or American courts have yet not decided who should be getting what, and this is still going on. So this way the technology is quite controversial. First of all, we don't have the patents, means India does not have patents, and second,
Hmm.
those who own the patents themselves, there are a lot of contenders and disputes. So under these
So
circumstances, how the government will deal with these patent conflicts, I'm not sure, but they are saying that they are doing some processes or ways to manage it. So that has to be seen what's going on there.
now, see, I mean, since you pointed this out, it's a very strange situation, because there is a technology which the ownership of which is disputed at this point. We don't know how this technology will pan out when it is actually put into practice. I mean, crops are grown using these kind of varieties on the earth, on the ground, and then if things go wrong, they can easily say that we don't own this technology, it is a matter of dispute, we don't have the patent, so you can't even lay the allegations on us, let alone prove it.
Yeah.
So, and this reminds me of another, just to trying to understand that I had done some research on these vaccines, the whole vaccine thing. I had found that there was a vaccine which was developed by a proper institute in the US. US companies started producing it on a commercial scale, and that the trials of those vaccines were conducted in India, which produced damaging results, leading to even deaths of women, young girls. Right, it led to that, and uh, in the US itself, the coverage of that vaccine is barely 10 to 15%, whereas in
Right.
developing countries they are upwards of 80 to 90%, and there is a government aided program to push that vaccination. So my point here is that, is this gene editing technology, or whatever we are choosing to call it, is it a case where these varieties are supposed to be produced or sown in the fields of India without having any study, like on the ground study or a survey, or a watch or in their fields? Is that the case here also?
Yeah, I mean, India is the first country to have developed gene edited rice, though numerous other countries are also working on it, like China. But because it has not been developed in the way it has been announced and developed in India, and they are planning to release it next year, so maybe we will be the first country to have it in the field, if at all it comes. And
So
of
just
course we
just
don't know.
sorry to interrupt you. So
Yes.
does this mean that when we say India has developed this gene editing rice,
Right.
uh, do we mean to say that any Indian institute, or let's say the ICAR or PUSA, there are several institutes working on this innovation on in seed, etc. Have they worked on it, or is it just that some company has come to India and claim that, look, we have this technology and this will increase your yield and reduce your water requirement. So let us, grant us the approval. Is that the case?
No, no, this has been developed by two institutes in India. One is the Indian Institute of Rice Research in Hyderabad, who have developed the Kamla rice, and the other
Okay.
is ICAR New Delhi, who have developed the Pusa DST1 rice. But the
Hmm.
technology, the basic technology of CRISPR-Cas9 or CRISPR-Cas12a, these technologies are patented, which have been allowed for research. Means for research they don't charge any royalty or anything, but once it is commercialized, once you
Mhm.
want to give it to the farmers, then of course there will be royalty charges. So right now it is a kind of a research type of thing, so they have used that technology, and they have used that technology to develop the gene edited rice, and this is the
Yeah.
first such example in the world.
Okay. So
Here
in
no
many,
company is directly involved.
okay. So in many ways, it sounds like a clickbait.
Yes, I mean, in future, maybe this technology may go to some company for, I mean, for making
Mass scale
seeds and
production.
commercialization.
Yeah.
Yes, but all these are very controversial because of the patent issue. So
Mm-hmm.
one until the patent issue is not settled, we don't know, and the royalty charges can be quite high. And who absorbs those costs? These are the questions which we are not sure about.
Okay, and one more question, as a layman. Like I said in the intro also, that we have a modicum of buffer stock. We are feeding a very huge population. Government is also subsidizing quite a fair bit of it. So, do we really? I mean, in terms of just a common sense argument that is coming to my mind is: do we really need these high yield varieties? And which retain very less water. Is it going to be really beneficial, let's say, in terms of climate, in the wake of climate change and all? How do you see this?
Yes. So yeah, the institutes are claiming that these are drought and saline tolerant, and they are higher yielding than their parents, and they mature 20 days before their parent. All these claims are being made, and they are saying that this is important for the current situation of climate change and all that. But when you look at their trial results, that is the All India AICRP trials, which are held by ICAR every year for their varieties. When you look at that data from 2023-24, you find that the data is quite inconsistent. In so many trials, they have trials in several states across all over India, 12, 13 states for different types of conditions. But if you look at the data, you will find that in very few cases, these varieties have actually performed better than their parent.
Okay.
So but they are claiming that it has performed better. So they are actually taking only the data where they have performed better. But what about the data where they have not performed better? And those are the major cases. So,
So
so
essentially,
this type of
consistency is in question.
yes, inconsistency is there. And the second thing is there are already so many varieties with us which are having good yield, both from the traditional rice varieties as well as modern varieties developed by ICAR. And then we have also saline tolerant rices. We have several hundreds of saline tolerant rices developed by farmers, like if you go to coastal areas in Maharashtra, or if you go to coastal areas in West Bengal, you find people are growing those saline tolerant rices for thousands of years, and they can already withstand such conditions. There are also several drought tolerant rices. And then there are saline research in saline crop research institutes in Karnal and in West Bengal who have also developed several saline tolerant varieties. So with all these things, I don't understand why we need to go for a risky technology to develop these type of rices, and that too when their yields and their performance are not consistent enough.
In fact, that brings me, I was just going through some literature, and just today I came across some news item of December 2024, and it says that the BARC It has claimed to have dedicated 70 innovated varieties of rice, wheat, oilseeds, etc., using non-GMO methods over the
Right.
years, which has led to better yields and more. They are more climate resistant, and they were local varieties. So in fact, I was going to ask this question. I will put this to you that it sort of it validates what you just said, that when we have already
Right.
we already have so much of variety in seeds in all these things. What is the problem? And one more
Yes.
thing, in some time ago, a large number of scientists wrote to the agriculture ministry and also to the PMO, if I am not wrong, about this. So, what were the main,
Yes.
main, the main claims of the scientists, and has there been any sort of response from the ministry?
Basically, I mean, several organizations have written to the agriculture minister and other concerned departments, and they have. I think there was one rebuttal which they had made initially when the first letters had gone, but most of these rebuttals, which what they have claimed, are not true, which we have looked at, and we find that they are not. I mean, what they are saying is not is what is happening in these rices. And then the scientists have also written about the gene-edited rice and the problems of off-target effects, the problems of contamination from different microbes which are being used for the gene editing, the problem of copy number, that is all the copies of the genes are being modified, the possibilities of adverse effects in terms of release of toxins and allergens, the possibilities of contaminating India's traditional rice pool. So there are so many concerns which have been raised by scientists as well as other persons who have written, other organizations who have written to the agriculture minister. But the response, I think there was only one response where they rebutted some of the points. But after that, there was no such response in that respect. Yes.
Okay, and one more thing, when you were talking about it, when we say like a gene has been edited, does it mean
Yes.
that because I'm just trying to understand it as a layman, and for more, a large number of viewers who may not be very well versed with the technical aspects.
Right.
Uh, when we are saying that a rice or a variety of rice has been gene edited, the gene of, I mean, its gene has been edited, so it will mean that whatever positive or negative effects that change under that change entails, that will continue in all the further the further generations of
Right.
the seed. So it's
Right.
like,
Yes.
once a mistake has been done, it will be irreversible. Can we say that?
Right. Yes, very much. Because in the PUSA DST1, for example, they have knocked out or deleted 366 base pair of genes of the drought and saline tolerance gene in rice. So that 366 base pairs which have been deleted is permanent. Means now generations of that rice will have those genes gone forever, until again through gene editing they might want to insert back those genes. Maybe then that recovery is possible, but otherwise it's a kind of an irreversible change. And they are saying by knocking out that gene we have brought in drought and saline tolerance, so that is the positive part. But there are several negative parts which we are not talking of, and because as I said that the exemption is there, we are also not looking. So now they are saying that by this process the stomata numbers have declined. So there is morphogenetic changes in the rice plant. And while stomata, the number of when the number of stomata decrease, the evapotranspiration is reduced, so there is drought tolerance, they are saying. But then stomata is also useful for so many other functions. It is useful for gas exchange, it is useful for managing pests and diseases, and it is useful for how much light intensity would come in the leaf and all that. So there are multiple functions in nature. It is not that one appendage or one part of something has only one function. There are multiple related functions and they overlap each other. So once you change one, there are several other things which are also getting changed, and we are just looking at the positive part, and we are not aware what may be the negative parts. So that is where the risks and the controversies come in.
Okay. One more thing, there from the literature available, I'm given to understand that it is not only rice where this technology is being sought to be used. There are apparently more than 40 food items where this type of work is being, this exemption of uh, gene editing in the name of, I mean, on the ground that it is different from genetic modification. So those items are also on the in the pipeline. Is that a correct assessment?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yes, that is why, in fact, it is very important to resist or question these gene-edited rice, because if these are approved, then there are 40 more crops in the pipeline, and not only crops, there are animals also. You may be aware that the gene-edited sheep has been released in Kashmir. So
Okay.
now gene-edited chicken may also come in. So it is both crops, animals, even trees in outside India. Trees are also being developed. So even there is gene editing being done in microbes. So different things are happening. Like this gene editing technology is now spreading like wildfire, and in China they had also done for humans. So I mean the implications are very serious. So we should be very careful before embarking on such things.
Yeah, in fact, the way you explained it, it appears that a day might come where they will talk about genetically edited cows or genetically modified cows even. I mean,
Definitely.
and
It is already
then,
going on
yeah.
outside India.
Okay, and then we are a country where our government has gone on record to say that we are trying to revive the indigenous, let's say, indigenous cow breeds, indigenous crops, indigenous, farming methods and other
Right.
types of things. And still, these kind of things are being allowed by the government. So, how do you see? I mean, does it sound like a dichotomy or double speak, or is it just that there is a feeling I mean, the government is feeling the need to assure the people that we will have enough food. What is it that could be leading to such permissions, such exemptions, etc.?
Yeah, it's definitely dichotomy, because as I had already said that there are lacks of, I mean, India had lacks of traditional rices. And if you look at NBPGR, National Board of Plant Genetic Resources, they have a repository of 4.6 lakh accessions. So all that is already there. Plus ICR has developed so many varieties. So instead of taking up those varieties, and we have already achieved self-sufficiency in rice and wheat, and there is so much stock now that we are converting rice into ethanol, and these type of things are happening. So I don't find the relevance of going for a very risky, and that to an IPR technology, for producing these gene edited rice or even those 40 crops which are in the pipeline. And I mean, it's very much unclear why they want to do it, unless of course there is some I mean, what we were talking about, there is some vested interest or some
Vested interest.
corporates involved who want to push this technology.
In
uh,
fact, even if we may not name that particular foundation, I mean, there are a couple, but a very, former IT czar has
right.
been investing a hell lot in terms of, farming and rural areas in the name
Yes,
of,
yes.
bettering the society and whatever. And they seem to be in a mood to control the whole system, be it health, be it food, so just want to get an idea that what is, I mean, what is the how much time do we have? because as far as I could gather, it was it will take about 4 to 5 years for that particular seed to reach the farmers. So can we say
Yes,
that we
just
have
to
that
add,
much time?
yeah, just to add to the previous question, one of the reasons which government gives is that they are telling that by increasing the yield of rice, then people will decrease the area under rice, because their understanding is that by having more per unit yield, the area under rice would come down, and that area can be taken up by pulses, oil seeds, and other crops which are right now we are importing, or we have less availability. But that may not happen, means this type of understanding they have, but in reality it may not happen, because if the kind of yield increase happens, then farmers may want to actually I mean cultivate more of it. And then we already know that rice and wheat have MSP, and that is why we know in states like Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, or Punjab, Haryana, people are only growing rice and wheat all the time, because those are the crops which are having the market and the price. So this type of logic they have, but we already have lot of high yielding varieties, and that is not preventing any farmer from reducing his paddy area or going towards pulses and oil seeds. So in I mean this logic is not well understood, what they want to claim by saying that if we have higher yield, the area under rice would come down. But we already have so many high yielding varieties, and even higher than what these varieties yield they are claiming. So
Yeah. So
it's
I
not
think
understood.
what I get is that is it a case of what we call new money? You know, you are acquiring economic betterment. You are becoming the among the top economies, and when you have that first flush of money, there is a tendency to ignore the basics and go for more commercial things or more basic commercial products. Eh, like I mean, will
Yes,
it be a case where we
that
ignore
is
the rice,
possible.
promote the commercial food crops like pulses, oil seeds, etc., and then when those crops do not have a market, then we face the same problem of maybe short on the food shortage may be there or whatever. I mean, is it a correct assessment?
No, I mean their claim is that because the yield of rice will go up, so you have 1 acre land. Suppose you are getting 4 tons. If you get 5 tons, so you will need less land to cultivate 5 tons, and so that additional land which is now available will be used for cultivating other crops like pulses, oil seeds. But in reality, it doesn't work like that, because if you get more yield, then farmer would like to have more and more land under it, which is what we are seeing for rice and wheat. And the second thing is, there is already a huge institutional buying mechanism where farmers are selling the paddy to the lamps and other these societies, and getting the minimum support price. So those things are also working. So it is not that the farmer, because the yield has gone up, they would just leave rice and start cultivating pulses.
Mhm.
So that kind of logic, we don't have good examples to show on the ground.
Okay.
And another thing
Yeah.
is that
Tell me.
by actually working on gene editing and all these things, there is a field of cutting edge technology. It's like something we are doing very high end research, and we are one of the first countries to do it. This type of feeling is also there. It is considered an achievement that we are able to do such things. So, being like India and all these countries are considered third world. So, in that respect, we have progressed so much that we are one of the first countries to edit rice. So, that type of feeling is also one of the reasons which goes behind it, of
It's
working
the
towards all these.
flip side of that colonial mindset.
Right.
One is that you feel very low. You feel your self-esteem is very low, that you cannot do this, you cannot do that. And in a bit to prove that it is not so, you probably overshoot the danger marks, or you ignore the danger marks, and you just keep on going in a wrong direction. That seems to be the case here also. One more
Yes.
aspect is that rice for us is not just food as it, something to be eaten, and you have a full stomach. It has a dharmic aspect. Rice, as in
Right.
Akshat. Akshat is its literal meaning is that something that cannot be broken, or something that cannot be destroyed. So even from dharmic point of view,
Yes.
what we are seeing when we are saying that we are editing the genes, uh, is it a case of rice being broken? It is no longer the Akshat that we know, which is used in our daily
Surely.
rituals and all. How do you see this?
Surely, because see, once you delete, I mean, we have deleted 366 base pairs from the rice genome, and this rice genome is the work of millions of years of evolution. Rice was domesticated 10,000 years ago, and the wild rice is millions of years old. So these genomes are coming from millions of years, and then suddenly now we just decide to delete 366 base pairs for Pusa DST1 and about some 17, 18 base pairs in Kamla. So, I mean, we have actually destroyed the rice because that it is not that original rice anymore because those base pairs are gone. So in terms of its I mean sanctity, because rice is probably the only grain which is offered whole, because when you remove the hull, then the embryo breaks and only the endosperm, which is the akshat we are saying, that is what we offer to the gods. In no other grain this is possible, because in other grains the embryo is inside the seed. So this way
Okay.
rice was so unique, and that is why probably it was considered to be offered to gods. But now apparently macroscopically we don't see any difference, but at the genetic level these genes are gone. So can we say this is still the original old rice? Like in some villages where I went, I saw that people don't use hybrid rice for worship. They might be growing it, but when it comes
Okay.
to religious ceremonies, they always want to take the traditional rice, and they also grow a little bit of traditional rice specifically for these
For the
religious
religious
festivals.
purposes. In
So
fact,
even the
yeah,
farmer,
yeah. Please go ahead.
yes, so even the farmer, he, even though that is not gene edited rice or anything, but even then he considers that it is hybrid, so it is not up to that standard. Here we have already deleted, so I don't find it's the same old rice which we talk about.
So, in fact, when you are explaining these things, you mentioned that farmers themselves have innovated over a long period of time. So,
Right.
that feeling that farmers are essentially illiterate people, not knowing what to, not knowing anything about science and technology as such. Again, I mean, is that the feeling which is governing this whole process, where scientists in the labs who are working obviously in a controlled environment? Because I remember whenever we used to talk about practicals in our, let's say, class 12 syllabus, the first term, the first line used to be under STP, standard temperature pressure, or under NTP,
Yeah.
normal
Yeah.
temperature pressure. So when
NTP.
you are doing
Yes.
something in a controlled environment, you can control very many things. But nature is, I mean, nature is so ever growing, ever evolving, ever dynamic, and to sort of
Right.
put in something into that open environment, that is that poses a lot of risk. Is that correct?
Right. Yes,
So,
very much it is. And see, the farmers were the people who domesticated rice. The first step was domestication. So there was wild rice from which they domesticated the grass, and that is what we are growing now. So that was a leap of technology. 10,000 years ago, they could do that. And then from that domesticated rice, they developed lakhs of varieties which are growing in the Himalayas, varieties which are growing near seashore, varieties growing under very water stressed conditions, under submergence, under flood, and having different types of properties like fragrance, like pest and disease tolerance, like yield and everything. So with this type of wisdom and knowledge, they could develop so much, and even today they are developing. But we kind of ignore, or we kind of think that no, no, farmers are only for growing crops. They are not for innovation. They are not for research, which is actually happening in the field. Their research is in the field, not in the lab, and using almost no technology, I mean no modern technology. So that type of neglect is there, and I think the scientists who have developed these varieties, I'm not sure whether they are aware that India has such a rich heritage of traditional rices, and there are several hundreds of saline and drought tolerant, and thousands, I think drought tolerant must be thousands, which are already there. And why not do further research on them to validate them or understand under what circumstances they work, rather than completely rejecting that there is nothing and we have to do everything ab initio, like there is nothing and we are the ones who discover and do it.
starting from the
This is
scratch.
something which is not clear, right?
So, has there been any communication with the government or any authority or the relevant authorities and institutes about these things, or is it something that has been done time and again? And let's say the bureaucratic approach of these institutions have ensured that this dialogue has not gone forward, as in, utilizing the expertise of the farmers who are doing things on the ground.
No, I mean, there are, of course, some examples, some good examples where farmers are also being recognized for the seeds or the varieties they have developed. But once it comes to yield or something to do with some new technology using these type of gene editing or gene modified technologies, we kind of rush without understanding that we might already have such varieties, or what may be the implications. We are actually neglecting the implications of it, the risks involved in it. And another thing, the scientists say that this is like mutagenesis, because
Which is
mutagenesis is being used for a long. Mutagenesis is a technique where we also introduce this. Basically, gene editing is a kind of mutation because you are deleting the genes. So they are
okay.
saying that in nature also there are mutations, because due to
Mm-hmm.
cosmic rays or due to different
Mm-hmm.
radiations, spontaneous mutations happen. Then they say that the scientists have been using mutation, using gamma irradiation or chemicals to create mutagenesis and bring out crops. So this is also like that. What is the problem? Because we never opposed mutagenesis, so why we are opposing gene edited crops? But these are not same. Even actually mutagenesis also has a lot of adverse effects, and there have been opposition to them also, but somehow probably it was not taken seriously, or we didn't work very intensely in that. And now we are equating natural mutation, chemical mutation, radiation, mutation by radiation, and gene editing. They're all the same. It's all okay, no problem. But that is not the way it works. All these technologies have problem. Gene editing has more problems, because this is a kind of gene modification technique where you are using agrobacterium, you are using antibiotic resistant markers, you are using cauliflower mosaic virus sequences. Then there is this off target effects, where I mean we say that we want to edit the drought and saline tolerant gene, but it may go and edit some other genes also which are looking similar, because there are only four alphabets in the gene ATCG, and this combinations of ATCG is the genome. So similar looking sequences can also be edited, which are not our target, which is what is the off target effect. Then there is irreversible change. So in what happens in mutagenesis, maybe some of the genes are changed, but in organisms, genes have several copies. Nature keeps several copies, like we can keep photocopies of different documents. So they keep copies, so that if something goes wrong in one copy, they can come back by using that other copy. But here, when the CRISPR enzyme goes inside the organism, it keeps on editing every single copy of that gene, and it doesn't stop till it has done so. So there is no way that the organism can come back to its original form except through gene editing. Again, by another gene editing, scientists may bring back, but happening in nature on its own, it is almost impossible. So this is the type of thing we are doing.
So in that, in a way, it will lead to a chain reaction that will be of vicious nature and maybe unstoppable,
Right,
irreversible, of course, but unstoppable, because it's like a corrosive substance falling on, let's say, a paper or a metal. It just, I mean, once it's corroded, you cannot bring back the rusted part, or the metal which is already corroded. It has changed permanently, so to say. So
right.
I
This
think,
type of thing has in fact
yeah,
happened.
okay,
There is
like,
something called chromothripsis,
hmm,
where they have edited some genes, and
hmm.
because the genome structure has become so destabilized, they have this process has led to the entire mutation of hundreds of genes. Means
This is in which
that the scientists
thing? Is it in a crop or something?
Yes, in a crop, it has been in there is a experiment done not in India where
Hmm.
they tried to edit some genes, and they had
Hmm.
some target genes, but by editing them, because these are all 3D structures, so there is different loops and all that, and in the process some structural instability or some instability occurred, because of which hundreds of genes were destabilized. So
Okay.
we don't know. I mean, because these are the things once you do, then you understand, oh, this can happen.
Similar
So
kind of thing happened with our BT cotton also, in terms of it impacting on the desi varieties. Was it also the case?
yes, yes, very much it is possible, because these are all cross-pollinated crops, so there can be gene transfer. So because
Hmm.
the pollinators are there, and these pollinators take away the anther from one flower to the other. In the process, there could be some kind of gene transfers also happening, which may lead to contamination, and then that contamination will go into the generation like that. This has happened in maize in Mexico, where
Okay.
they had found that the GM maize has contaminated the maize, traditional maize of Mexico. And we must remember that Mexico is the one of the centers of origin of Mexico of
Is
maize,
maize.
and India is one of the centers of origin of rice. So a similar kind of thing may happen here. And we can say that rice is a self-pollinating crop, but there is still 4% to 10% chance that there could be cross-pollination, and there could be also mixing of stocks. Suppose I have
Yeah.
harvested a gene edited rice and a non-normal rice, and I keep it together and they get mixed up. So I mean, so many things can happen in the field.
And how will it impact the consumers? Because, right, like you said, that once they get, suppose there is a gene edited variety, there is a traditional variety, it gets mixed up in the in the transition, or in transport and whatever. And when it gets packed, I'm thinking, let's say I'm thinking that I'm getting a traditional variety rice, but how will it it may this mix up can cause problems for the consumers also, even if they are conscious that they will
Right.
choose a traditional variety. How do you see that?
Yes, it will definitely create a problem, because first of all, the trust is lost. Suppose some consumer does not want to have gene edited rice. You don't know it got mixed up, and it's not possible to identify it like that just by seeing. So there is a question of trust and belief. Second is that these, because gene editing has been done, we don't know what may be the unknown consequences of allergenicity, toxicity developed in the grain because of this gene edited rice. So then that kind of effects may also flow into the consumer. And there are also some differences of cooking, differences in storage, differences of some organoleptic properties which are also mentioned in the AICRP trials. So it's not exactly the same as their parent. So those kind of problems of cooking, storing, taste, and about that toxicity, allergenicity, and the belief and trust, all these things can definitely affect the consumer.
In fact, I am given to understand that even genetically modified crops have had, there is verifiable data which has showed negative health impact on the consumers or people who consume those varieties.
Right, because of the toxicity and allergenicity. Because once these genes have been edited, then the protein has changed, and then it's gone into nature, and then what all other interactions may have happened, which may have resulted in production of certain proteins or compounds, which may not be healthy for the body. So that will again affect our health also.
So, how do we, what could be the way ahead? And one more question before we sort
And
of,
there is one example
yeah,
also of that. There
please.
is a GABA tomato developed in Japan, gene edited tomato, where people started feeling very sleepy after having that tomato, because this tomato was to produce high amount of GABA, which is a kind of a sedative. So we have
Okay.
such a new, I mean, because there are very few gene edited crops in the market presently. So we don't know what may be the adverse effects, but still we can find some information that these type of things are happening already.
Okay. So even in the case of gene-edited rice, I don't think any study or any assessment has been done about the possible negative impacts on the health of the people if they consume.
No, no, no. I don't think so. They have done. They are saying that it is equivalent to its parent, that is the MTU 1010 and BPT 5204. These are the, that is Samba Masuri. So Samba Masuri is the parent of Kamla, and 1010 is the parent of Pusa DST1. They are saying it is equivalent to that rice. Even though in the AICRP trials, there are differences which they have themselves mentioned.
Okay.
Right.
So I think the one of the major problems with going ahead in this gene edited rice varieties is it's not a fear of the unknown, but it's because usually what happens, sometimes people try to brush such fears as irrational fears of the unknown. कि वहां क्या होगा पता नहीं, सिर्फ इस बात से मत डर जाओ. But this is not something that is worth taking the risk, because food, I mean, I hear every there's a lot on the social media and YouTube videos are there. They talk about restoring the gut health, and they are saying that modern foods have changed our gut completely, which has impacted the digestion system and the
Right.
whole metabolism and all. So when we are talking
Right.
about restoring all those things, we are getting into something, the negative impacts are not known, the positive impacts are not established. So we don't even know whether this exchange is worth the wait. Whether the
Right.
positives will undo the negatives when we don't
Yes.
know. So in these circumstances, and also considering that we are one of the, if I'm not wrong, we are the second highest producers of rice and also consumers,
Right. Yes.
right? So in that case, and considering the whole dharmic aspect which we associate rice with, the akshat, what could be the way ahead? How should we take this forward? And do we have enough time to sort of stop just in time?
Yes. So first of all, I think we should make all the data public, because if there is no problem with gene edited rice, if it is like very good, wonderful, and there is no issues, then why not open up all the data for public scrutiny? Let everyone see the data. Let the experts see and comment on it. that yes, they have done all the mandatory tests, the rigor, and everything is good and fine, and we should not worry about gene edited rice, then it's another matter. But right now we don't have. So first step is to open up all the information available, and if some information is not available, then research or studies done on that before saying that this is safe, and we will next year we will go and distribute it to the farmers. So this is the first step, and I think there is enough time for that. Already this should have been done. This variety was released in May, and it is October now, so they should have released all the data, and even now there is time to release, and let public scrutinize it, let experts
Scrutinize.
comment, let there be a debate on it, and then let us decide, okay, yes, this is fine, no problem, we want to, we can have it, then we can do it. But without this type of understanding, and just because some scientists are claiming, and because we feel no, this is very equivalent to any rice, we shouldn't go for it. And
Yeah, please go
second
ahead.
thing is that if we go for this, then other 40 crops, it will become very easy, because once you say this, once you accepted rice, which is the most important food grain of the country and the world, then what is the problem with other crops like wheat or pulses or other things which are I mean minor to rice? So it will be open the floodgates for gene edited rice, and then we don't know what kind of consequences will happen in the environment, in animal, in human, in everything, in the soil. It is like it's going to be impossible to track or do anything. So we should be very very careful. We have already done one mistake with BT cotton, and now HT cotton, and all these things are also coming. I don't think we should take the risk with such an important food crop. There should be the regulation should be equivalent to the genetically modified crops. It shouldn't be exempted. That we have exempted these two technologies, SDN 1 and 2, from the jurisdiction of GESC. That is not correct. They should go through that same rigor process, and all the data should be made public. And after all those things, if we find that it is very safe and fine, then okay, then maybe we can accept what they are saying. But right now, that is not the situation. Even their yield data and all that is inconsistent, which which is something very simple, that what the kind of yield they are claiming, that also is inconsistent. Forget about safety and other things.
Soumik, the way you have encapsulated the whole thing, I recall from my own experience, while reporting on a subject. Although this has not been my mainstay. I mean, I have not reported on agriculture as such in my professional life. But I remember there was a report which said that increased use of pesticide, which was
Right,
promoted so much by government, and we used to see ads in दूरदर्शन कि इस समय छिड़काव करें, इस समय ये करें, ये कीटनाशक डालें. But that had entered food chain in such a way that mother's milk started carrying traces of
right,
pesticide. So viewers,
right,
we all know. I mean, yes, technologically in a particular area we may not be very well versed, but we all know the importance of food chain. And food chain is not only the
right,
food and you eating it; it is food chain and so many other things. And how it impacts you when it goes inside your body. So a lot of these things are something which we should be aware of, and that is what I would like to end this discussion on this note, that yes, maybe some kind of innovation is necessary. Are we really sure we want to do it? Plus, are we
right.
sure it has been done the correct way? So my request to the viewers is to try and understand this issue in as much depth as possible, and become aware, and wherever possible intervene in whatever capacity you can, because this is not only about one variety, this is not only about two variety, it is about the whole ecosystem, our own food security, and the way multinationals and huge giants of West corporations, which have
Right.
multi billion dollars, they are investing in gene editing and other such things. They want to control to control us. They just want to control us. It's a new form of colonialism, if you want to call it. So that is what I would like to, on behalf of the experts also here, that please make yourself aware of this issue in as much depth as possible, and do whatever you can in whatever capacity to spread the message that all the facts should be placed in the public domain, and then only some kind of permission should be given. So on that
Right.
note, Soumik, thank you very much for your detailed analysis and insights into this whole thing. As I said, it's a slightly technical aspect, but I have tried to touch on the broader contours of it, and hopefully something positive will come out of it. Thank you very much for joining.
Sure.
Namaste.
Thank you. Thank you. Namaste.